everybody, I am Liz and today I am here to do my August reading wrap up and talk about the books I am currently reading for September. I am so stoked to talk about these books because I finished a total of 7 books in August. So without further ado, we'll start with the first book I finished in August, and that was Archibald, Finch and the Lost Witches, book 1 by Michael Guyon. I did really enjoy this book, particularly the illustrations by Zenith. It really added an extra element to the stories as each illustration pertained to a particular scene in the book and really put focus in some of these horrifying creatures that Archibald encounters in the story, where Archibald's family inherits his grandmother's house after her passing, and as he is scavenging around the house to try to find his Christmas presents that his parents bought him, he stumbles upon a globe. And this globe accidentally, through Archibald's figuring, transports him into another realm where there is this slew of witches that were transported there for their safety. And they fight these horrific creatures called manticores. I gave this book a 3 out of 5 stars. I loved the story overall. I just had a few things that I had issues with, particularly because Michael Guyon, it's his first debut novel, and I know his stories can only improve as he continues writing. I had a few sentence issues and word choice issues. I also had a few issues as this book takes place not just in Archibald's point of view, but also his sister's point of view. And things are relayed in a way where even though Archibald's sister doesn't know something that's going on with Archibald, or obviously Archibald has no idea what's going on in the present London, there are snippets of each happenings in the alternate points of view that shouldn't be there because those characters don't know that information. And I felt like it just kind of took me away from the current happenings of the story, and it just didn't feel like it fit in place. But other than that, I really did enjoy the book and the story, and I want to continue on to figure out what happens with Archibald and everyone else when book 2 debuts, whenever that may be. Next, I finished Zenith by the duoship Sasha Alsberg and Lindsay Cummings. It takes place with the Marauders, or Androma's crew, as they go around and wreak havoc in order to gain money and status in their star system. Androma gets captured and is forced to take a job with her ex, Dax, in order to save a political figure's son from being wrongfully imprisoned, and things just kind of happen and fall into place, and there is this plot with another star system wanting to gain political power back. There's a lot of things going on, and I did, for the most part, enjoy a majority of the story. I gave it a 3.75 out of 5. I do have to say that the audiobook helps with some of the sentence structure and word choice issues that a lot of people had, particularly me trying to physically read this book. I also didn't particularly enjoy Dex's point of view, and I also had an issue with the multitude of points of view in this story. I think there's about 7, and that is a lot of point of views to follow, especially when a lot of things are happening, and it makes the story longer, and it throws the reader through a ton of different plots and plot holes in a sense. And so I really am excited to kind of see its conclusion and how everything wraps up in the sequel, and see if all those little issues I had are resolved with the conclusion nexus. Next, I finished Arch Enemies by Marissa Meyer, which is book 2 in the Renegades series, and I have to say that Marissa Meyer is probably one of my favorite authors because I, for the most part, have enjoyed every single book that I have read that she's written, which is nearly all of them. Arch Enemies and Renegades as a whole is a superhero, supervillain story where our main character, Nova, is a villain, and she's really trying to figure out how to one-up and dismantle the Renegades, which is, as society deems them, the superheroes of the society. As always, a lot of things happen, and things kind of get crazy, especially in a sequel, and I am really stoked to read its conclusion when the next book comes out called Supernova. I gave this book a 4.5 out of 5 stars as I really enjoyed it, and a lot of my hesitations of the first book were for the most part resolved by book 2, and I am stoked to continue on and see where the finale takes us. Next, I read Dearly Departed by Leah Habel. This book was released back in 2012, so it has a lot of those 2012 YA book tropes. And this one takes place in a new Victoria, where after World War III and a lot of civil unrest and the eruption of Yellowstone, blasting everything in an ice age, the remains of civilization have banded together to try to make things work. And it ended up being a colony of really conservative people who essentially recreated the Victorian era with more futuristic gadgets. However, apart from their already civil war with the southern population, they are already also now dealing with a zombie invasion. As there is a lot of things going on in this book, and a lot of world building and character development and everything just getting smashed together with a total of 5 points of view. This story really dragged out for me. It was really slow paced. I felt like nothing was really happening besides character conversations, and so I ended up giving this book a 3 out of 5 stars. I also well preferred the best friend's point of view to our main character Nora's point of view, and at the very end, the accumulation of the book after everything had already been all wrapped up, one line, one sentence, pushed this book into a sequel series, which has actually now become a trilogy because they're releasing another one. I felt like it was unnecessary, and they could have wrapped it up and concluded it into being a single book, so I am not continuing on with this series. The next book I finished was Draco Tavern by Larry Niven. This is a sci-fi story of a Siberian tavern called the Draco Tavern, where they serve a smorgasbord of clientele because 30 years ago, an alien ship dropped down to Siberia and introduced humans to aliens. And then, since then, many races and species of aliens have come down to Earth to interact with humans. And all of these are just short stories of our tavern owner dealing with aliens, dealing with the culture shock and the human shock of this whole situation. It wasn't a novel like I wanted it to be, as it was just short stories. And I also was driven a little insane by the amount of times Larry Niven repeats himself. Over and over and over again, he repeats phrases on how aliens look, even though they might have been talked about the previous page, or just other little snippets and things. He repeats himself way too much that it really distracted from my enjoyment of the story, and so I ended up only giving it a 2 out of 5 stars. The next book I read was The Help by Catherine Stockett. I absolutely loved this book so much. I thought I would because I loved the movie back when it came out years ago, and I just finally managed to read this book and listen along with the audio and just really, really enjoy the depth that this gives to all those characters from the movie, because the movie leaves so much out. Gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. I really loved the characters and how they progressed through the story. It was just so amazing, and if you haven't read this book, what are you waiting for? Next, we have the last book I read in August. Finally, we get to book 7, and that's The Winner's Curse by Marie Rutkowski. And this is a book that is pretty well respected, well raved on BookTube. However, I didn't quite get there. I ended up giving it a 3.5 out of 5 stars. I didn't feel like it was anything new. Maybe when it came out it was pretty new material, but since now I feel like a lot of this is cliched and tropey, and that's okay. That's all well and good. My main issue was with the relationship between our main character, Kestrel, and her slave, Erin. I didn't feel the fluttery butterflies. I didn't see the spark. I really didn't understand what drew them together as much. I felt like it just didn't transition to the page. I did really enjoy the world and like the hierarchy, the kingdom structure in this high fantasy world, as we have Kestrel. She purchases the slave Arin, and it really just not only changes her perceptions of this enslaved population as her father took over this kingdom, but also it has Arin change his perceptions, but also still be like person of espionage. I don't know. It was interesting, but at the same time, like, nothing new. I am uncertain if I'm going to continue on with this series. I think I will in the future at some point in time. If you have any opinions on whether I should continue on the series, let me know down below. So there we have the books I read in August. Now we're going to move on to books I am currently reading. We have The Invisible Man by Ralph Ellison. This is a very interesting, confusing, crazy story of a black man in the 1920s, 1930s who became invisible. And it really just catapults racism and the whole like racial divide, racial conflicts of the era. I am 25% of the way through this book, and I have a lot of things going on in my head when I'm listening to it and reading it. It is intense. Thank you guys so much for watching me rave and rant and talk about books and books and books. I hope you enjoyed this video. As always, if you did, please give it a thumbs up and give me comments down below about books you've been reading. If you've read any of these books, please tell me your thoughts about them down below. Let's start up a conversation. And if you aren't subscribed yet, please subscribe to my channel to be notified to whenever I post, which is usually every Tuesday and Friday. I hope to post regularly. I'm trying so hard, and I hope to get there soon. Remember that I love you guys, and I appreciate all your support and your love. And until next time, bye!